Hi, welcome back to Notes to Self. This is Cory and Melanie. If you don't know who we are both born and raised in the AUB. My dad is the current leader of the AUB. I was raised with 4 moms and 34 brothers and sisters. I got married a week after I turned 17, had my first 3 kids before I was 23.
And I was raised in Montana with 9 mothers and 39 brothers and sisters. And I'm Cory. And we were raised up in a compound in Montana, also part of the AUB. And I did not get married until I was 31. I was wise.
Yes, very wise. And we both left the AUB in our mid-20s. So we are doing a first-time watch through of the Sister Wives series. And we we probably should have decompressed a little bit before we did this recording, but you might get a lot of unedited thoughts on this one because we just did episode 9 and 10. And we both came away feeling a little bit like, what the hell did we just watch?
Post-traumatic stress syndrome from growing up in the AUB. They emulated it perfect in these episodes. So
it was very frustrating to watch. Hold on one second. So we're sitting here kind of going through our little bit of PTSD. So we start off with episode 9. And Christine is over here. She's talking about how she absolutely does not want to move to Vegas, right? I swear, Christine is very prophetic in a lot of different aspects of this show. She has said many, many things that have later come to light and come true. One of them being, if they move, their family will it will destroy their family.
And it's almost like her grandpa was a prophet of the AUB or something like that. Really weird.
If you don't know, because you've been living under a rock and you don't know anything about this family, Christine's grandpa was the one who started the AUB, or the Apostolic United Brethren, and he was also the leader we used to call it the All Red Group.
Mm-hmm.
We called it the All Red Group because of, in fact, when people ask me locally, which polygamous group are you guys from? We always say the All Red Group because that's what people know. They know the Kingstons, they know the FLDS, and the All Red Group. Yeah. So, one of the things that Cody says right off the bat out of on the couch is that he's, telling why they're going to move. We're still a little bit flustered. Sorry, give us a second. We're going to flow into this. They're still a little bit, he says, one of the main reasons we're going to move is this investigation. So there's clearly other reasons that they're moving. Yep. Now, everyone that I know, we have said this before, most polygamous people that we know did not watch this show. We did not watch the show. But most people already knew the reason they moved to Vegas was because Robin's family lived in Vegas or close by, close enough that Vegas was a good place for them to go. And so when he says that, that they're picking up, now we're not saying that's why they moved to Vegas is for Robin's family. Now, and before I move much further, I never want to discount someone's trauma or someone's experience that they felt was traumatic enough. But so much of what happens in these episodes is lighting a fire in both of us because we were the children that experienced this type of chaotic behavior from our parents. Mm-hmm. We were the children that were like terrified and scared to death over every single thing. The police were going to come and get you. The world was going to end. I mean,
constant fear-based information. People were coming up to Pinesdale and they were going to be doing interviews, but it was full of FBI agents. And so we couldn't talk to anybody. And they were coming up to find out who the men were and arrest them and take them all to jail. And so we're all hiding in our house while they're doing a documentary in Pinesdale and couldn't be seen by any of the news media. And then all of a sudden that one disappears and nobody comes to get us. And everything's too calm. Let's create a crisis.
Chaos, yeah.
And we would be pulled into those meetings and told to be wary and fear-based. And Oh my goodness, the amount of apocalypses we lived
Oh
through
my
growing up
gosh.
as kids. And so
Dozens of apocalypses.
when we became adults and started raising our own kids, and our kids would hear about something, the world's ending here, I'm like, do not stress. I've lived through them all. The world's not ending. And so tried to create more of a calm, peaceful, instead of this constant families getting together, needing to pray because the world was coming to get us. So
Yeah.
it's exhausting. And it was exhausting. It created post-traumatic stress syndrome in me. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're doing the exact, they're following suit just like all the other
Polygamous people
polygamous
so
people.
one of the things too, I
So,
felt like I won't even try to hide the fact that I choked up several times
mhm.
during these two episodes, even the, episode number 8, because every time these kids get on there
Oh my
and talk, and they
goodness.
talk about how this destroyed their lives, or it's just, and I get that they're teenagers. I understand that. I get the parents have to make the decisions, but being a child who lived under this kind of duress from my parents, I have a lot more empathy for that, and a lot more, I remember those feelings of just what's going to happen. Where are we going to go? I remember not knowing where we were going to live, not knowing what we were going to do. When my mom decided she was going to move out of the family home because of the abuses that happened with the other sister wives towards her children, she decided she was moving out. We moved out under different circumstances, but still the duress and the stress of not knowing where we were going to live is real. And so I did tear up several times watching these children's lives literally be ripped out from underneath them. And go ahead.
Well, for parents, I mean, these guys are my age or
They're a little bit
similar.
older than us.
Yeah, but for them living through this kind of stress and then turning around, I don't know. I don't want to even judge them on what they were doing, but I it's something that I've chosen not to do to my children
Right.
because it it was not healthy for me as a kid to go through that. It was stressful for me. So,
Right.
and my brothers and sisters. So,
And
yep.
just watching the children and their nervous systems just be like on high alert all the time, it was really hard to watch.
Mhm.
One of the things that I thought was interesting too is because on the couch interview, Christine's talking about some of the things. Well, we can't move because the end of the semester, blah, blah, blah. And then Robin cuts her off and talks over the top of her about, and say, I know Cory's smirking because I'm like, well, I can't even talk about this because everyone thinks I
Yeah.
cut you off all the time.
No, I'm just enjoying your comments on it. So,
Because I just think it's ridiculous
yeah.
that this, I mean, I don't know Robin. I've never met Robin. But watching this woman cut everyone off all the time because she's the expert in this field is crazy to me. And so here's Christine saying, well, we can't move for this. And Robin's like, yeah, but blah, 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 blah. And then tries to give out the positive reasons why she wants to move. I was really, well, I'll get to that in a minute because it's farther into the
The new
episode.
semester starts.
Yeah.
So we're looking for the silver lining of why we're all moving down there. It's amazing.
No. And so, yeah, so the scare tactic with the kids was really hard to watch. Pulling them together as a family was really hard to watch, some of those little kids. And I know we'll get more into that a little bit here in a minute. But one of the things I thought was interesting and funny is that here they are cleaning the kitchen, and Logan says, yeah, Cody does dishes at least every Friday. He'll do some dishes, a little bit of dishes. Why I thought that was comical is because recently in season 19, he's like, I'm trying to turn you on. Am I turning you on, baby? Type thing. And I'm like, oh my God. It was so gross. I'm like, why does he think that doing the dishes is going to turn him on? He lives there. He eats off these dishes. Do the damn dishes. Why is that a favor to your wife? I don't get that at all. Other than we live in a matriarchal society, a misogynistic society. I don't know what you want to call it.
Patriarchal.
It's so bad. Okay, so one of the things they're talking about, Mary, go ahead.
Well, it's interesting. Christine is still giving good reasons not to, but they're falling on deaf ears from the priesthood head, and the priesthood head is the one that makes the final decision for the family. So you can tell your points of view, you can tell all of that stuff when the decision's been made by the priesthood head. That's what happens.
Right.
So
right. And you just get to fall in line. You just get to do what you're told to do, because he makes the decisions for the family, and it's for the betterment of the whole family.
Or the puppet master does, but that's just me.
You don't believe it's a priesthood holder, you believe it's a puppet master?
Well,
that's going to cause some problems.
Well, it keeps going on. There's other part
right.
2 that I'm like, oh yeah, it's the wives even pointed out. So
right,
the decision making, where the true decision making is happening. So
right. Well, and so one of the things I think is funny too is that Robin and Mary are the two that go to Vegas to help him find homes. So I thought that was kind of interesting that those two, really the homes, who are the homes going to house? The majority is going to be Janelle and Christine. But I can see, this is where I want to point out, yes, we're picking on Cody because he makes the decisions, and Christine and Janelle just have to go along with it. But Christine and Janelle have fault here too, because they don't want to be a part of a lot of the decision making. They just want to take care of the kids. They just want to make the dinners. And so this is unfortunately all too common that I see polygamous wives do. They don't want to know this stuff. Just tell me where we're going. Tell me where we're going to land. Tell me what's going to happen. And that's all I need to know. And so they keep themselves ignorant about these types of decisions on purpose. And so you will get those wives who want, like when I talk about the different wives' personalities, you will get those wives who do want to be deeply involved in the decisions and the wheels and the works of how the family works. And then you get those other wives who are just like, I don't want to know. Just tell me when we get there. Tell me where we're going, what's going to happen. So you really cannot blame the husband entirely, or even the dominant or favorite wife entirely. Really, there's a lot of responsibility that falls onto the shoulders of these women because they're choosing to stay in an ignorant state.
Yeah, and eventually they change that, but right now it's I'm glad that I'm just watching it now. I have respect for the ladies and what they've gone through and stuff like that, but these 2 episodes definitely frustrated me. So
well, and just watching Janelle, because she reminds me so much of my mom, it's really, really hard to watch just the complacency where she's just compliant. She's just like, okay, whatever. And then the scare, then she's the one who has the most paranoia. And I feel like this is like my mom watches all of her videos. I love you, Mom. But this is exactly how my mom was. The scare, like her fear level was like way beyond unreasonable in most situations. And who did she dump that fear onto? Her children. Who received the bulk of Janelle's fear? Her children. And so Madison and the other kids. So here they are. He talks about wanting to live on like a plig row. We do know a lot of people who do have that kind of situation set up where they're like, even Cory, where they have a big house and then they have a small house next door. And that is very common too. Now in the polygamous communities, they've actually gotten to where they have communities now. And so the families can come together here in Salt Lake. In Montana, they were all in a compound, like the FLDS were. But in Salt Lake, we didn't really have very many, like we had smaller individual compounds, if you would call them. But now they're starting to get a lot more of them where they're going out and they're buying, 200 acres or whatever, and then they're breaking them down to families. So you're seeing a lot more of the wives living plural monogamy because they're living in their own homes, but they're in a plural situation. So let's see. I thought it was funny because Cody's talking about he wants to live in a big house, right? He wants to have all of his, and Robin's like, yeah, she's shaking her head no. If you watch her body language, she's shaking her head no. And she's like, yeah, that will never happen. I won't be living in the same house as everybody, blah, blah, blah. And Mary's like looking at him all doe-eyed, like, oh yes, our one true, we'd love to, because these women have lived in the same house with each other for 15, 16, 18, 20 years, however long they've all been married. And Robin, to
custom build a home that houses all of them. But yeah, and Mary's just like, oh yeah, that's been their dream. That's what they've been doing for sounds like for 5 years. I don't know what they're...
Well, no, they lived in like a trailer like a double wide trailer. Like, yeah, apparently the family has really lived together a lot.
So, yeah, so they've lived together because that's the way that the three older ones had learned and agreed to follow the 27 rules. And so
you're going to start bringing up the 27 rules of polygamy a lot.
So they have all been living that way. And so they're like, oh yeah, this is our dream, Cody. This is what brought them all together.
Yeah.
And Robin's like, we will have that big house with the sister wives.
And Robin's like,
no,
we've always, dreamed of being one big family. So what's coming out of her mouth and her body language, two totally different things.
And what she's created.
Well, she's created separation.
Yeah, well, she's created that she doesn't want to live in one big house.
By being separate.
Yeah. So maybe one big house with just her and Cody and the kids.
Right.
So, and she's created it. Everything that she says, she's done the opposite of. So...
Well, and one thing I'm curious to find out is because we'll make these commentaries and then people will come on here and they'll be like, oh, TLC is paying for this. Oh, TLC is paying for that. One of the things I'm really curious about is why the Browns plead poverty all the time when TLC does pay for a good portion of a lot of this stuff. Why do they claim poverty all the time? And so I thought it was interesting. They go to a party store. They're going to prepare a 40th birthday for Mary, and it's going to be like this big surprise, right? And they go up to... So they're just like putting stuff in the basket. They get up there and Janelle's the one who pays for it. And it's a couple $100. And so I find that they're in the middle of a massive move. That's not cheap. That's got to be expensive. And the way that they freaking chose to do it is ridiculously stupid. But
save that money for some new tires.
No kidding, right? And so that's what I find so interesting is why do they claim poverty and yet they spend this kind of money? I don't know. Do they do that so TLC will pay them more money? Do they do that? Like, I just find that an interesting dynamic because all polygamists that I know are pretty poor. Like, they're not, it's not that they're even poor. Let me rephrase that. It's not that they're poor. They just have to make their dollar stretch a lot farther than a monogamous family does. And so they might make 100, most polygamists I know make somewhere around 100, 150,000 a year. But when you have to divide $100,000 a year between 25 people, that's expensive. And so
and 4 houses.
Right. And 4 homes. So I just find it interesting. Their choice of what they choose to spend their money on seems craziness to me. Like, let's go spend several $100s on a party while we're in the middle of packing up to move and spend all in our moving expenses.
Yeah. Well, and then this is the second season. So they've probably
gotten paid a little bit.
Are not getting, they're coming out of the way they were in the first season.
Yeah.
The first season.
Still, why sit there and keep complaining about being poor?
I didn't hear. I haven't heard that they're poor.
Oh yeah. This whole entire episode, they're like, oh yeah, this is going to be so expensive. We can't afford to do this. We can't afford to do that. Maybe I hear that part because we were so broke growing up. We had nothing growing up. So now they're at Mary's birthday party. And it was funny because Robin comes out and she's got these, and I'm like, look at her being all flirty with Cody. And so Corey calls them vixen eyes where she comes out. And I'm like, she's got a little something going on there that she's
causes men who are married to stare at them at an uncomfortably long time into those eyes,
hoping they don't get struck by lightning. Yeah, it was like, vixen eyes is a perfect way to say it because she feels like so, I don't know, it felt really uncomfortable to watch her do it and if I was a sister wife sitting there and I watched another sister wife dance in front of my husband like that and do that, I'd be like, oh, sit down. Like, back your fine self right up and sit down.
Good sister wife.
I would not be a good sister wife. I think we've already established this. I would be a horrible sister wife. I am not physically violent in any way. I have never agreed with physical, like, anything, but I could probably I could tear someone down and make them cry. And I don't like that about myself, but I can if I needed to.
I would not make a good polygamous husband. So
yeah,
that's very clear. Even the priesthood leaders.
You would.
The priesthood leaders saw through their veil,
their
and
magic balls.
They said he will not make a good priest, a polygamous man.
No, you're very, very
and I believe him.
To individual needs. You're very good at that. Okay, and at the end of the episode, you've got Cody sobbing. And he's just like, this is now very personal.
Real tears too.
Real tears.
Awesome.
And Robin was too, real tears. Like she had, actual, Corey's like, I think that's the first time I've seen real tears. But it was really, I thought it, and again, let me preface by saying, I never want to take someone else's trauma away from them or discount I'd love to take the trauma away, but never discount someone's trauma or what they experienced. And I'm sure that this was very real for them and very scary for them. But in the state of Utah, it's literally written in the state of Utah's constitution that polygamy is not legal. It's not just a national illegal thing. It's written in the constitution. They would literally have to amend the Utah state constitution in order to have polygamy ever become legal in the state. And so I don't know what he thought was going to happen, but the police are never coming after this family. They never would. They haven't gone after any other families in years.
Since the 1950s.
Since the 1950s when they did these raids and they displaced hundreds of children and tore them from their families. Go ahead.
Well, they just saw that I feel like that they saw that the damage that was done in the 1950s. So they were going to, I felt like that the police have kind of went, well, we got to make sure that it's something we can charge them on, because just for living one way. And the kids even talked about that. I think Maddie said that some guy could have 2 or 3 affairs and have kids from
mistresses.
Yeah. But if the man chose to take care of those kids, that's illegal. It's not. It's the having multiple different marriages and doing that. And so I think that the police, maybe, I don't know anything that went on with the police thing, but it would be hard for them to get that to stick in
court.
Yeah, today's age. I don't know. And obviously, now that we're so far past it, they chose not to.
The state chose never to pursue it or do anything. So. I mean, there's so many more high-profile polygamists before Cody Brown that they could have gone after, that work one-on-one with some of the state lawmakers, and they've never gone after any of these people. Mm-hmm. So again, we have not lived polygamy, and I can't imagine some of the scare that they must have felt. Mm-hmm. And especially knowing what did happen with Christine's grandfather, the founder of the AUB, their family was torn apart. But they eventually did come back together, and a lot of the wives did live together again up until they passed, up until they lived together well into their old age. And the family had like a family like style type compound where that's where Christine and her family lived too growing up.
Based on what we've been told, I mean, that I've been told from my mother and father, and most of my mothers were brought into AUB or the polygamous through Rulin. So
and so we're just going off stories that we've been told by our parents. And so again, I felt it was way over dramatized for TV, way overplayed for the television show, and then again, I'm glad that I was never in that situation where I would have to make those decisions for my children. And
if you're looking at the silver lining, which they were trying to look through at some of the silver linings, this move did create a place for the kids to go out and to get away from that close-knit community.
And break away from it.
And have a choice of actually. And that's the interesting thing, the illusion of choice for these kids to, well, you're going with us, we're your parents, and they're going to take them down there. That is something that those kids eventually learn from. And I think I would just say from my own experience, there was a point in time where I became an adult and I'm like, I am not going to be, just like Christine said, controlled by fear. I want to know everything that's going on. It's probably why I got into contracts and into because I want to know everything that's going on,
all the details,
that's legal or not legal, so that I can make an intelligent decision without wrapping the worst case scenario, fear this, fear that. And so I have chosen a line of work where I know I make sure everything I know is in a contract, and I ask plenty of questions. So, because I hated the way we grew up, and everything, there's worst case scenario and worst case
Well,
scenario.
and it's just assumptions. People
Yeah.
don't know. And this is what is so frustrating about polygamous people is they don't know. And so their minds tend to go to worst case scenario. And instead of Cody calling down to the local Lehigh office and saying, "Hey, what's going on with this investigation?" Calling the county attorney, "Hey," and he says, yeah, he says, "We're taking control of our lives." No, you're not. You're uprooting your entire family and moving them out of state. That's not taking control of your life. Taking control of your life is getting on a phone and calling, "Hey, what's your intention? What's going on here? Do I have something to worry about? Do I need to hire an attorney? What do I need to do? What are your expectations of me and my family?" And maybe all of those things happen. And like we've said in past episodes, he was getting paid to be on national television to commit a crime, which is illegal
not
in this.
to commit a crime.
Yes, because polygamy is a crime in the state of Utah at that time. Now it's not. Now it's not legal, but it's not illegal.
Yeah, but he wasn't. Yeah, he was showing a lifestyle that was considered illegal.
So maybe not commit a crime, but it was illegal. Yeah. So maybe instead, I feel like in my own, and I know nothing, I'm just some dumb kid from Utah. I feel like making the sister wife show and getting paid for that was more important to him than the stability and the what's the word I'm looking at, for the stability of his family.
Yeah.
And the emotional stability of his family, because he could have easily called once he found out, oh, I can't get paid to commit to be doing an illegal activity online. Okay, great. Then fight for the courts, then decriminalize it, and then you can go and do a show about it.
And I felt like that there was a community of men coming out with different, and I don't know when they all came out, but there were a community of people coming on TV showing that they were, and so they were there willing to back up the Browns.
Right.
And so why not stand up and show your kids that, hey, this is a lifestyle. Stand up to the authorities and say what's going on. Instead, it was this, and saying that I don't want to make a decision in fear.
And yet every decision they made is
a decision in fear and instill that fear into your children. It's frustrating to me.
It's very frustrating to watch.
So stand up. But again, I'm not in his situation.
Right.
I never would, but I probably hope that I would just stand up and say what's going on, and we're going to make a stand. So we're a loving family. So I didn't understand. I don't understand. I'm not in that situation.
Well, and he had so many friends, just like you said, that would have stood with him against the state of Utah, or even
a lot of independents were
and maybe not. They don't even have to stand against the state of Utah. No. They can stand with the state of Utah to stop the abuse, and that's what's so frustrating. Okay, so we're done with episode 9. We're going to move into episode 10 here.
But I did see on the news that eventually they did come up here and stand.
Right.
But I didn't understand why they would. And I don't even.
Well, in a couple episodes before, Robin's like, yeah, we want to show that not everybody is, abusive. Not everyone does underage child brides. Not everyone lives off of the government. And yet they chose to run instead of standing up and saying, wait a minute, let's work with the state of Utah. And so that's why it leads me to believe that the paycheck from TLC was more important to him than actually standing up to these abuses that happen in these communities. Because there's a lot of other polygamous families, and a lot of you mentioned them in my comments, Joe Darger, which I have a deep appreciation for Joe Darger. He employed me and helped me through my divorce with my ex-husband, and really stood in there and gave me a listening shoulder to cry on. He was wonderful. Cody had a lot of people like that in his life that would have worked with the state of Utah. And so I get that they were scared. I get that all of that, but they were making irrational decisions that were affecting their children at a deep, deep level. So on episode 10, we start on episode 10 with them. Now we're going to break it to the younger kids that we're moving, and they get the whole family together. This did give me slight PTSD because I remember these types of family meetings, and they were never good. They were always, what's going to happen with our lives? Why are our lives about to be completely overturned? And we should be afraid. And let's the whole family get together and pray to God that these things don't happen. And so they would like, these scare tactics were unbelievable. And then you've got Peyton and you've got Garrison, and they're both sobbing. And it's like, sorry, buddy, don't know what to tell you. And now look at some of the behavioral struggles that Peyton had growing up. Look what happened to Garrison. I'm not saying that this move was a direct result of that, but they just literally yanked the life out from underneath these children and these young boys that just, everyone's sobbing. And then Robin's kids are crying. And I'm like, why are you guys crying? You haven't even lived in this house. You don't even have friends in this city yet. Like, you just moved here. And so maybe that's why they were crying. But I feel like
empathy crying.
Yeah. But fear begets fear. And it can become contagious. And then it turns into paranoia. And that's what it seems like happened in this situation, was paranoia.
Yeah. I named it the family home evening of fear.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was the family home evening to bring them all together and just let them all be. Here's the fear. Here's everything and it is interesting that he basically says in that family home evening that if we stay here, we will be separated, but if we move, we will stay together. And that's the exact opposite of what happened.
Yeah.
Because they moved,
They were
separated, and they've never come back together.
Yep. So I think their chances were probably better to stay there. One of the things I thought was interesting is that they're talking, and now their teenagers are getting old enough to start seeing through some of the BS. And as much as I really like Christine and Mary, there's a lot of bullshit that they feed their kids that we were fed in this polygamous society. And so you start to see Maddie with the eye rolls. You start to see some of the older kids with the eye rolls. You see
eye rolls like a pro.
Yeah. And so Maddie was just the one that was just like, I am just done with this. And then you see Mary's child Leon do the whole give a list as to why she should be able to stay in Utah. And one of the things that she says is the dance. And those were major things in our lives growing up. They were major activities that we would go to. And literally your entire life revolved around these major events. And so I totally understand that would be a valid reason if you are a 15-year-old that's just devastated everything about that child's life. And so that's what I think is so sad, is that I remember those moments of just, it didn't matter what else was happening in the world. The dance was the most important thing. And these are just and that, to be honest, that is probably one of my biggest things I've missed about going to church and the AUB are the dances and the activities. You were a great dancer. Cory and I went to one once for some event. I can't remember what it was. I think one of your sisters or something was singing there or something, and we went. And I was like, oh my gosh, because we met each other after we left the AUB. I'm like, we've never been able to dance with each other at a dance like this. And we get out there on the floor, and oh my gosh, he's got the nice, what did they call Frank Sinatra or Fred Astaire? What did they call him? Something shoes? Blue shoes or something like that. And I'm like, that's Cory. Cory is just like, he knows how to dance like nobody's business. Oh,
well, I grew up going to those dances, but I have being a young man going to those dances, it was the older guys that were always trying to dance with the young girls. I went there, and the only people who dance with me are our sisters. So
no, I would have danced with you, babe, if I would have known you back then.
Yep. So my mom would dance with me, make me not look weak. So
that's not true. He makes himself sound that way, but it's not true.
And I went to this dance with her, and it creeped me out too, because you got whole old men in there creeping around. So,
but it was up in Pinesdale. We went to the one in we've never been to one here in Salt Lake. The ones in Salt Lake are pretty big, but the one in Pinesdale is. But I loved them. They were just such a big. Anyways, that was a squirrel moment off to the side, but I understand why this is really like at the moment ruining her entire life. Mm-hmm. One of the things that
ruining all the kids' life.
Right.
I feel like that the kids were kind of there was a whole conversation with the teenage kids there going, hey, give them a reason, give them a list of reasons that we shouldn't have to go.
And they can't give one good, like they can't give one valid reason. It's infuriating. If you could see how many exclamation points and WTFs I have on my page, you'd be like, oh gosh. And I won't even lie, we pulled out a couple of beverages, adult beverages, because I was like, oh my God, we're going to need them for this episode. One of the things that was so irresponsible, and I don't know if they're just saying this just for show, just for the show, is that we're moving in 1 month and we have nowhere to live. What the hell are you people thinking? Like, how irresponsible can you be to uproot your children's entire... I'm being so harsh about this.
I know.
A lot of this is projection of the way that I grew up. I apologize. Yeah, it really is.
It really is. A lot of this it brought back memories of us growing up within the community and how things would change and you had no control.
It was just chaos. Nobody knew what they were doing.
And it was something that once I became an adult, I'm like, I'm never allowing that to happen to me again in my life. So I want to create a safe place so that if there's any of this fear going on or upheaval, that my brothers and sisters or my family has somewhere to go and calm their nervous system, relax, that this is a house based not in fear.
Right. So. Well, and that's why in the time that I've had children, we moved once and we built this house. We've been here 22 years for this. That is an absolute trauma response on my end, because I never wanted my children to question where they were going to live. Yeah. Because I felt that question my entire life. I was so concerned about it. And so he's like, they're going to rent this place for 1 month. I would love to be I actually wouldn't, because it would cause me so much anxiety, to be a fly on the wall in that house for 1 month. I can only imagine the fights that happened. I can only imagine the upsets that happened. I can only imagine that people retreated to whatever designated room they had, because if you were in a common area, I'm sure the pressure was way too high, because everyone's under such a huge amount of duress that they can't, they're lashing out at each other with emotional anger and frustration and fear.
Yeah. The parents are stressed. The kids are stressed. This is God,
it gave me so much anxiety watching it.
High stress environment. And
right. But so Robin's theme or whatever she says at the beginning of every episode is the wives were a team. I wanted to be a part of that team. Well, one of the things that Cody says in here is they have this house rented for 1 month. 1 month. You're going to literally move 25 people after 1 month. And he was like, okay, but Robin's not that happy about it. She's like, I said I would go. And he's like, Robin's never shared a kitchen with other wives before, and she's really concerned about it. She doesn't want to do it. Oh my gosh. I don't know how many people even heard that statement that he made. And I'm like, no wonder she doesn't live in the big house. She doesn't want to share. She wants her own space. And there's nothing wrong with that. But don't put pretenses out there that that's not what you want. You want to be a part of the team. You want to be a part of this plural family. You love the way that this family lives together and functions together. Don't put that out there if that's not really, if you're not willing to sacrifice 4 weeks in a home and share a kitchen for 4 weeks. But you want to be a part of a team? This is how teams are built.
She is a team member. She's the only one that knows how to use the microwave. So
she's going to cook those eggs for breakfast.
Some eggs for breakfast in the microwave.
It's just infuriating to watch these women who say one thing and then their actions are totally different. And that's what I mean, we're already starting to see it with her. And teams get built when they work in the mud together, when they're working hard, when they're going through the bullshit together, when they're not perfect, when they're on their 100th try of trying to figure something out, and then boom, all of a sudden they get the home run. And that's what's infuriating to me is she just wants the pretty parts. She doesn't want to be in the trenches and actually do the hard parts of it. So that part, if you saw how many what the F's, like WTFs I had after that one, you'd be.
Well, and I wanted to go back to when he shows up at her house too. It was my first time. I actually thought he shit his pants on. And Melanie's like, no, those are the kind of jeans
that Robin has him wearing.
Oh my gosh, Robin's starting to dress this little man. And so, yeah, the fancy pockets, I guess, but for me, I was like, he sat in something or he shit his pants. He ought to go change his pants. But I guess they are very fancy diesel jeans that he's wearing. So
every time,
or Victoria's Secrets.
Yeah, every time Cory saw Cody's pants, he's like, "What the hell did he sit in?"
I was worried for him that, oh my gosh, dude, I'm embarrassed for you. You're on camera wearing pants that have brown stains in them. So,
well, and it is 11 p.m. here at night, so we are like, what did we just watch? And it's 11:30 or 11, and we didn't throw back any drinks that were hard. Mm-hmm. They were very just mild, but just to take that, what the heck off of our, yeah. So one of the things I thought was funny is Cody comes into Christine's kitchen, and I have heard my dad say this a million times, your sister wife, blah, blah, blah. And I love how Christine claps right back at him. No, your sister wife isn't doing da, 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 da. And this is where Janelle just reminds me so much of my mom, because Janelle didn't even grow up in this lifestyle. All she did was hear the horror stories about the raids and about the people who were torn apart from their families. And it's scary. It's very scary. I get all that. But Janelle has gone to straight paranoia, and she wants to just get out there. I don't know, what's the difference between leaving on Monday night and Friday or Tuesday morning is going to change anything.
She didn't want to make it obvious by
that
going and renting a rental van and stuff like that, which if they'd just done a little research
or called the county
that if they found a crime, they're going to bring them back anyhow. So
yeah, they'll extradite him back to Utah to stand trial for whatever crimes they're going to convict him of. And that's what's so infuriating. It really, literally would have taken a phone call, but that's not good television. This is good television. Watching somebody terrify their child and having their child have trauma, real life trauma, is good television. Actually picking up the phone and calling the county district attorney and saying, hey, what is your intention? Is this going to go somewhere? Do I need to be concerned? That doesn't make good television. Go ahead. No. I'm so judgmental about this. No. I'm so sorry.
If they had just planned a little bit better. But one of the things that there's a whole bunch of conversations that are going on camera, and I feel like they're showing some stress, but
I can only imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine what conversations went on off camera. And Mary kind of points out, because they were trying to leave on Monday. Well, let's just head down there on Monday. Well, Robin doesn't want to. She wants to head down on...
Because now they can't get their rental until Tuesday.
And so I did love it. Mary was like, why? Because you and Robin decided while you were over there, that they're bringing up some of these issues that are going on. That says a whole book of what's going on, that Cody and Robin are making decisions and telling the other three wives what's going to be going on. Whatever the other wives say, whatever information they communicate to Cody, he just gets frustrated, because I guarantee that's what they're saying, these things. I guarantee that's what was going on in the background was Robin and Cody were making some decisions, and then Cody had come over and informed the other wives, what were going on. So you're already seeing some separation.
Yeah.
Some,
I loved it when Mary said that.
Yep.
When he's like, well, I'm making a decision. We're leaving Tuesday morning. Why? Because you and Robin made that decision when you were at her house?
But then she backs up. She makes a statement and then backs up like, I'm just asking.
I'm like, come on, Mary.
Come on,
own
just
your
keep
shit.
it.
Just own
keep
that.
it. So
I know, but she did.
keep
She
there. She's wanting
backpedaled
to
right
keep
away
peace too.
to not piss him off. That was very frustrating to watch. And then the paranoia, the level of paranoia that's going on, it makes zero sense to me. And again, I don't think I can say this enough. I don't want to discount someone else's traumatic experience. I don't. I just don't understand the level of paranoia that was happening. It made zero sense. And then Cody flat out says on one of the camera look, he's not on the couch interviewing. He just says, we're just flying by the seat of our pants, making assumptions. Yes, you are. And you are emotionally traumatizing your family doing so. And how irresponsible is that?
Mm-hmm.
I lost a lot of respect for the adults on this episode.
Just because the fear base that we grew up in, we're having a lot of post-traumatic, like I said again, just because of the way we were raised.
Yeah.
They're raising their kids or doing this to their kids just like happened to us growing up. So.
Well, and then Christine even points that out on a couch interview. She's like, this is why we went public, so that our kids wouldn't have to deal with this kind of this kind of trauma or fear, and that they wouldn't have to raise their kids out of this kind of trauma and fear. And I'm like, then why didn't you pick up the phone?
And
why didn't you
up.
call an attorney? Why? There's so many other choices that you could have made other than this one. Why make this one?
And standing up against the man, against the laws of the land. Can we ask you a few questions? See ya, we're going to the land of the free down in Vegas. Okay. So what? Every time something comes up sticky, you run to a different state, it's not how it works. So
Right. Well, and I know Mary's child's having a really hard time with this entire move.
I think all the older ones
right,
are.
But
maybe even the middle ones are.
I know, but Leon's making the biggest stink about it, right? And so finally, she hasn't packed any of her stuff. She's not moving. She's already, and then Cody's like, you need to go do this without being so stubborn and so mean. And so I think you're already starting to see some of the different ways that the children are interacting with the parents too, and it's starting to be called out. That is one thing when you're living under this high of stress. It's not as easy to perform for the cameras as it is when things are going a little bit easier. And it's like, hey, everybody smile for the camera. Okay. And it's funny because I do remember being interviewed when they interviewed my dad for that Lonely Polygamous one, for Big Love, for the show of Big Love. I remember when they interviewed my dad and we were all walking down a dirt road out in the middle. Now this town is like one of the richest towns in Utah to live in. But we lived in Draper. It's called Draper, Utah. And my dad owned a big home out there with several acres. And we were walking down one of the dirt roads and my dad's screaming and yelling at a couple of the kids. And he turns in, he's like, these are only still shots, right? No video. So he has to turn around and make sure that they're only doing still shots, no videos, because he's ready to kick the crap out of a couple of these kids. And so I think that's one of the things under these high duress situations. You can't always perform for the camera. And this is where I think after watching episodes like this, I feel like there needs to be more laws incorporated for people who use their children on shows or blogs or anything like that. That's a whole other topic, but I just feel like it's so detrimental to these children's mental and emotional stability. I get so riled up about this. Sorry. This is when you're going to see the not so nice side of me come out, where I'm just like, how do you do that to your children? So another thing I thought was interesting, I just wrote it down because I've had a lot of comments about this, is Robin's moving and she's moving all of her dried flowers. And we've mentioned this a couple of times. So I know, but flowers are not very commonly given because they're a waste of money. They're an expense that polygamous people just don't have. And so, yeah, a lot of the girls keep stupid dried flowers. I still have some in my basement from my first boyfriend. And so they're just something that that women will often keep because it's important and special and sentimental. Yep.
And then this is where I spit out my drink, or about choked when I was taking a drink. Robin says, teary-eyed as she's getting ready to pack up and move. This is not the America I learned about in school. Which school did you go to? Did you not go to the polygamous school?
No, I think she actually went to public school. Well, when they moved, her elementary years were.
This is exactly the
school.
America you learned. You should have learned about in public school, and especially in the church school. 1886. That's why the polygamous group is there. They made this illegal. 1886. They had their whole polygamous split off from the main church because this became illegal. Mm-hmm. Everything you were taught in Sunday school and why we were what we were, this was the America you grew up in. It's now being changed from what it was, but yeah, she's not a good student on history apparently, or she just was playing it out for the camera.
And again, the emotional turmoil and stress that they caused themselves, I feel like so much of this was self-inflicted. It did not have to be like this. It did not have to be this hard. And again, we've never lived polygamy, so we've never had that fear of one of us being arrested, but we did live with the fear of our parents. Yeah. We did. And I remember I couldn't call my dad. I couldn't address him in public. I couldn't, because there was a genuine fear there.
So we applaud you guys for getting on and trying to change this. And sorry, we were just hoping that it would be different than the way we grew up. So
well, and then they move, and then other polygamous families and other advocates for polygamous family are the ones who actually got the laws changed and made that so that it's not illegal. And in my opinion, and I'm not a history scholar, I'm not a legal scholar by any sense, polygamy will never be legalized ever in the state of Utah, nor do I think it ever should be. But decriminalizing it makes it safer for the abused people to come out and speak about the abuse that they're suffering. And that's a good thing, because right now, when you're an abused polygamous wife, you don't feel the safety that you can go and tell. Well, now, not right now, but back when this was being filmed, you didn't have that safety net of being able to go report the abuses that were happening to you or your children. Because if you did, there's a possibility your children would get taken away. Yeah. You know, and so it's very true. I watched my mom live it with my disabled brother. She never went and got government assistance or help because she was too afraid that the government would take him away. And so it's a real fear and it's a real possibility. I don't know. I feel conflicted because it's like, were you guys just doing this for the fame and the glory and the paycheck? Or were you doing this because you really did want to change something?
Well, and it hopefully did. I'm hoping that this episode or this season did wake up the police going, well, we shouldn't prosecute that. But then again, they dislodged their kids. They had them all weeping in tears.
I know.
My heart, through these two episodes, my heart went out to the kids.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my heart did not go out at all to any of the adults in this family. It made me sad for the kids. So.
I got very emotional several different times watching these children struggle through this. And I get kids cannot make family decisions. Like, I get that the adults need to make the decisions. I understand all that. But when you can avoid this much trauma on your children, I feel like it's your responsibility as a parent to do so. Okay, now they're all in the cars and they're driving away, and it's one ridiculous thing after another. This man and his vehicles, like, that's what should be illegal, is not taking care of the vehicle that's going to transport your children.
What this tells me is, AUB members, you guys need to start working on some mechanics. Get some mechanics in your...
You've worked on getting doctors.
Yeah, you've got all those. You probably need to get some mechanics in there or kind of educate your... I am blown away that they had so much car trouble, so many tire troubles. Those were things that we always had to take care of because we were in the snow up there. I had to make sure that we changed the tires out to studded tires and stuff like that in the wintertime and switched back. So half of us were mechanics. My brother is a full-on diesel mechanic because he did so much of this when he was a kid. So.
Right. Well, and Cody just says, is this a sign from God that I'm not supposed to leave? And then the next one happens, and then the next one happens. And it's like, I can only imagine Christine comes out and she's having a meltdown. I can only imagine she's got a car full of screaming, probably crying kids. They've been sitting on the highway for 2 hours. And it's just the lack of organization with this family is mind blowing to me. It is, and I remember experiencing this type of chaos growing up, and I never understood it because I watched other polygamous families who had their shit together and they could do things in an organized manner. And this makes no sense to me, the lack of organization and lack of, like, it just feels like fly by the seat of your pants and don't deal with, like, if you have an issue with this or you have trauma, keep it to yourself. Like, I don't want to hear your cries. I don't want to hear your upsets. I don't want to, sorry, you're hungry. And then he goes, and then Cody's like, Christine has her meltdown and she's like, I'm listening to these kids. They're starving. We need to feed them. And he goes, I became stiff-necked at this point, and the border was 60 miles away, and I was going to get to the promised land because Vegas was my Plymouth Rock. What is...
Yeah.
There's no words to describe the sheer stupidity and ignorance in this man in this moment. I was fuming when I'm watching this because I'm just like, then towards the end, he goes, I prayed to God, do you have my back? And on my 45th third birthday, he answered me and said, yes. Well, guess what? Your kids don't feel like God has their back right now. Your kids don't feel like their parents have their back right now. And we have said this many, 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 many times that the kids are the collateral damage in this religion. And you're seeing it unfold right here. And it's like Madison at one of the very last scenes of this episode, she's standing there and she's got a deer in the headlight look. And the cameraman or somebody asked her if she's okay. And she's like, how can I be? I just want to go home. And I just welled up with tears. I couldn't hold that one back because I just remember that my parents' bad decisions and chaotic decisions fell onto my shoulders to make sure that I took care of my siblings because my parents were incapable of doing that in the middle of their chaos.
And yet it created probably, I feel like a lot of my family, a lot of your family are more organized and try to create more stability because of the way we grew up. So I have tried never to bring fear into any. There's some things that go on, but no, the world's not coming to an end tomorrow. It hasn't for 54 years. If it does, we won't even probably know about it. But I will be long gone before.
So as much humor as we like to bring into some of our commentary, it's hard to bring humor in when we see children so hurt. And we see just out of just ignorance and out of just lack of and poor planning, and poor organizational skills as parents to see the trauma that is inflicted on these children. So this one's a little bit heavier for us.
Yeah, sorry,
even
guys.
A couple of drinks did not make it funnier because there's just nothing funny about watching these children suffer. There's just nothing, we laugh about our own trauma because it was a way to cope through some of it. But yeah, those feelings are real. That heaviness is real.
And the high stress that's creating around the family, you've got wives kind of telling you secretly what's really going on in the background. They're letting truths out of what has creating this. So I'm excited actually to see the end of the next couple episodes to see. I want to see how they handle living in that house if they show any of it.
Yeah, I'm curious.
That's what.
Or if they're like, stop filming for 1 month because this is way beyond a shit show, and we can't air that to the public. I don't know. And we'll be curious.
I've done rentals, and I don't know. I would have panicked if all of a sudden that size of family would.
We've owned rentals before.
Oh my gosh, no.
That was
No,
the first thing Cory
yeah.
said.
You probably ought to read that contract, because he does the whole, I'm so tired of everything, I don't care what I'm signing. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
And
Read the contract.
this is why there's chaos, is because they hit their breaking point where they just don't care. I don't care. Just get it done. Just let us get out of the car. Let us get in the house. We don't care. And that's where the chaos ensues, is because they're not careful about the things that they're doing.
Yeah.
So,
Because usually you're signing how many adults are in there and how many kids.
It looked like every adult signed it.
Yeah.
Which is, weird to me too. But yeah.
Awesome to those people who rented it to them. You guys are awesome.
They might have had the backing of TLC. Who knows?
Yeah,
I don't know.
True. I don't know.
But let us know what you guys think. This was episode 9 and 10. They were a little bit heavier. They hit a little closer to home for us. And so let us know in the comments what you guys think.
We'll recover.
Oh,
yeah.
We're going to
go on to the next one. Excited to see what's coming up next. It's the middle of the night here. So,
we're going to go get in the hot tub.
Yep.
So we've bounced right back, but talking about it can definitely hurt our hearts a little bit. Especially when you're watching these little boys just fall apart. Yeah. So let us know what you think in the comments. If you haven't liked or subscribed, please feel free to do it if you like our channel, and share us if you know of anyone else you think would like and benefit from our commentary.
And we appreciate all of our fans. Thank you guys. We did have to get a bigger camera here to put my head into proportion, because you guys have been saying such nice things about me, and I appreciate it.
I'm so glad that you are so loved. I really am, though. So, okay, we will see you on the next episode.
Okay, see you guys.